Well, we missed Halloween. Oops.
Oops.
We're back. And today, as I said last time, we're fast forwarding 9 years, 10 years, 9 years to 1920 with the first major German expressionist piece, which is a big genre in influencing horror with its kind of exaggerated gothic aesthetics.
All right.
And that would be The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Is this one going to have sound?
No.
No. All right.
Are you hyped?
I am hyped.
Get hyped.
This is your personal guide to horror.
All right. We've done it. We've made it through another one.
Too easy.
Epic. Basic thoughts.
I thought that the story was there, but all the other elements didn't execute it like super well. Like the story was still like told at the end of the day, but I just don't think it was like super effective.
Fair enough. So let's go into the story because it's very confusing for the time that it came out. I feel it's pretty ambitious, which is something I'd give credit to. So it's set as a frame narrative, like Frankenstein or something.
Right.
We have our main character whose name I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
He's telling the story of how his friend Alan and him go to the fair, and there they meet Caligari, who is showcasing a somnambulist who he can hypnotize into waking up.
Yep.
And he tells fortunes, and he tells Alan that he's going to die, and then he kills him.
Right.
So Caligari is hypnotizing the somnambulist to commit murders, which is the murderer that's on display the whole time that there's a mystery about. And they sort of figure this out, and they chase after him.
Right.
And he runs into a asylum, and our main character goes looking for him, only to find out he's the director of the asylum.
Yep.
And then they figure out he's impersonating a mythical figure named Dr. Caligari, who brought somnambulists back.
Right.
And so they lock him up. And then we go out of our frame narrative back to present day,
Right.
where our main character is getting married to random girl.
Random girl one.
Random girl one. And right before he's going to get married, he sees Caligari, and they lock him up because they think he's crazy because he thinks this doctor in charge of the asylum
Right. Is Caligari.
Is that what you got from it? Because this is the second time I've seen this, and I still don't quite know what's going on.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, the like somnambulist guy is the murderer, but like he's also under the influence of the dude who runs the mental asylum,
Right.
Who might be Caligari. Like who knows? It's kind of like a sort of a horror twist of like something like the Jade Scorpion,
Yeah.
And the Jade Scorpion's like done well, and it's more for comedic purposes. But like, that he manipulates like each of the main characters. But in this one, it's not as clear because you're just like, okay, so is this guy some like circus freak? But then he's like running the mental asylum, and then it like the somnambulist is like a puppet, and then like So yeah, it was confusing, but that's kind of the baseline of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how you saw the ending. I think our main character is just crazy Because at the end, it doesn't seem like any of this actually happens.
Right, and that's possible.
But it's not clear.
Right.
Something you noticed pretty early on was the expressionist side of it. This is a pretty influential film because it's a big first step for German expressionism.
Okay.
Which is this style that kind of informed horror going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And it's categorized, as you put it, Broadway, but very over the top,
kinda
theatrical
silly
sets
almost.
where they paint the shadows on things.
Right.
Everything's kind of, as you said, Seussian in architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Did that help or hurt?
I thought it hurt if you wanted to be like serious about the story, but it also like made it unique in a way. No, unique is not always good, obviously, but it still like stood out for sure. But yeah, I thought it hurt more than it helped. There was only like the one legitimate scene that I thought was cool. It was kind of the ballroom where, and at the very end, we're there again.
The asylum. I think.
Yeah. And so that place was like pretty cool. Yeah. But everything else, like the city, was just like really weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it has a very like late Tim Burton look to it.
Right.
Where it's gothic to a fault.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So like, I don't think that helps in making it scary. If that was the goal. So.
Right. And I don't know. It's a pretty big movement meant to just exaggerate things, and it even reached outside of Germany. We'll see two more pretty soon German expressionist films from Germany, but you'll see it, ripped off in a lot of different ways. It kind of leads into this like Gothic era where everything's really shadow based.
Yeah,
and I think that's a big plus for most horror, but I agree
Okay.
it's a little silly in this one.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
I think I liked this more the second time because I had a vague understanding of what was going on.
Right, the first time you was just kind of lost on you.
But yeah, this is not a favorite of mine.
Yeah, neither is it a favorite of mine. But I still think like it has its place, and it was influential, and it was unique.
Yeah, definitely.
And like, one theme that I think like really got set forward too was like both manipulation, insanity, and like murder.
Mm-hmm.
And like those are really common in a lot of horror movies now.
Yeah.
So like, I bet that just had like a huge influence for sure.
And I like the ideas they're trying to execute because there's the idea of this big like whatever you want to call it, fourth, fifth act twist is a pretty common trope nowadays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You were watching, your siblings were watching The Village at your house the other day.
Oh, right.
And all the M. Night Shyamalan films kind of
have that twist.
Have a similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I highly doubt the film trope was started here. It was probably rooted much farther back.
Right, yeah, in literature and things like that.
But it's interesting to see it here. As we've talked about, I don't think it works particularly well. What'd you think of the classic silent film acting here?
Yeah, I mean, because you don't have like words that are spoken, you lose a lot of like emotion that way and tonality. So you only have to do it through physical expression.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was like over the top.
Yeah.
But also that was kind of like what acting really was back then. So, part of us is like, we can't really blame them because like they were just doing their job. And like part of being over the top is like having over the top hand gestures and things like that. And now that is used for comedy, being over the top. And so now this comes across as funny instead of scary. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's very much the acting of the time. This film features a girl who looks like every silent film girl ever. They all look exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know why that is. Maybe that's just me. I don't.
The ultimate typecast.
I really, because they're different people, but they all
Right,
look
yeah.
exactly
They all
the
look
same.
exactly the same.
We also have Conrad Veidt in the role, I believe, of Caesar, the somnambulist,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a guy that would become pretty infamous in the silent scene and especially the horror scene. I think he's in Casablanca at one part.
Oh, really?
He's in like The Man Who Laughs, which is where Bill Finger and Bob Kane got the idea for the Joker from.
Oh, wow.
He's in The Hands of Orlok, which is the next film from Robert Vina, who did this one.
Yeah.
So he's kind of a big face.
Nice.
What stood out to you particularly?
About him?
Just moments through the film.
I thought, in particular, like, how much they used the whole, like, almost tunnel vision frame within a frame thing. And then how many times they did, like, there's a lot of editing stuff, like the fade in and fade out transitions from scene to scene rather than hard cuts.
Right.
I thought that was interesting because it, like, sort of mimicked a, like, curtain, right? So I thought that was really interesting. And then they had, like, interesting uses of close-ups as well.
Yeah.
It really reminded me of the ones you'd get in, like, SpongeBob, where, like, they'd zoom in and it'd be, like, uncomfortably detailed, you know?
Yeah.
So it reminded me of that. And then as far as the score goes, just kind of how non-formulaic it was.
Yeah, it felt very almost like Schoenberg modernist.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is in the modern period.
Yeah,
Correct.
we're getting there. 20s, yeah.
So yeah, this is like definitely coming up on when, you know, like forms of music like that music is based around for classical music like are becoming less and less common and less popular. So yeah, there's that. And like while I didn't really think it fit, I didn't really think it didn't fit at the same time. Like I was kind of indifferent to it, but it was still like unique in its own way.
Yeah, and it felt very, I guess, contemporary. Because I want to say Ver Klar Nacht by Schoenberg is maybe 24, and that's kind of his big piece.
Okay.
But that atonality and that just very different approach to composition,
Right. Exactly.
I think was very. It's emerging in this time, and it would make sense because all these things, tritones and atonality, are a great way to make someone uncomfortable, which is often the point of horror films.
Right. What other point is there?
Right. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure this is the original score, but they've re-recorded it because it would have been played live.
Right.
So I don't know if adjustments were made or not.
Yeah, and like I'm not sure as far as like where the trying to think of the word, like the advancement of the instruments at the time,
Right.
like how close they were to instruments now, like because everything's mass produced now, but like you know if you think about string instruments, they used to be like made out of different material and like not tuned to a true A,
Right.
because we didn't know what a true A was, but now we know it's like 440 hertz, and you know we can make it sound as good as possible. And so yeah, like back then it was kind of just your best guess basically. And yeah, it would have sounded different, but like how different we don't really know.
And like you pointed out, the opening credits felt very synthetic and synthy.
Yeah, that was really weird. Like,
because I think it was an organ.
Right, it had to have been.
Unless it was originally on an organ and they re-recorded it on a synth later.
Yeah, maybe.
Which is possible. I
guess.
I don't know. Yeah, the score was definitely an interesting point. What would you say is a big thing this has influenced? Do you see remnants of this going forward in film in general, and
Mm-hmm.
what have you.
Yeah, I guess like the experimental score, and I think now in like the 21st century, there's kind of like the staple of what a horror score is, and you have your very common instruments, like
Right,
strings are always still involved, but they're played very differently than here.
The Bernard Herrmann.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still like part of it because if there wasn't that, then there might not be what we have. So like it evolved over time because they're still very different, but just kind of having like a score not with form. And then I guess some of the acting I guess was influential, like for being terrified.
Yeah.
Because like once the like monster or murderer comes, like the victim screams, and it's always somewhat over the top.
Yeah.
Because they're just like giving it their all, but like it's still a trope. So yeah, that was pretty influential going forward. Like I said earlier, the themes of murder and insanity, and like plot twists, also very common going forward. So
Yeah, and I don't know if this is a thing that happens a lot, but something I've noticed just looking at this list here is a lot of early films seem to use framing devices.
yeah,
And I don't know what the
why
reason
that
for that
is.
is. Next week we're going to watch Phantom Carriage, which is another film that uses a framing device.
Cool.
And going forward, there's quite a few of them actually. And I don't know why that is. Interestingly enough, Frankenstein, I haven't seen it, but I don't think it uses the framing device of the book.
All right.
So that's the one that breaks it, I guess.
Cool.
Oops.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, very, very interesting. As we pointed out last week, this is originally, as far as I know, also shot with the color tinting,
Yes.
different film stock. Do you think that worked here? Because you liked it in Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, I think it worked for Day versus Night here. Other than that, I don't think it was as important as in Dante's Inferno.
Yeah.
But it was still a thing for sure. But yeah, I don't think it was near as important.
And I like this film enough. I don't love it, but at the end, I'm kind of wondering what's the point.
Yeah.
Did you feel that way at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, there's not really too much to take away from this. Maybe don't ask when you're gonna die, and expect an answer.
Don't rant like a crazy person in an insane asylum.
Yep. Also that, but yeah. Other than that, there's not really, a point.
So what did you think of it overall then?
Yeah, kind of like you. It's like I thought it was okay. Like I don't love it. I don't hate it either. It's just kind of a fun history lesson for like where film and acting and like set design was at the time.
Yeah.
Versus now. And then like what elements influenced later horror films when like then you get to pieces of art that are like really legit. Like they still took influence from something that wasn't as legit, but just made it better.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
You were talking about how it might be really interesting to do a remake or a reimagining of this.
Yeah, because I think you could make a story like that with, the dude who runs the insane asylum, like basically taking this dude and making him murder people, and like that's pretty spooky. Like I think you could make that like a decent like modern remake, with the right, of course, crew and writers. But yeah,
I think that might be interesting. I don't know. I don't believe anyone has done it yet, but might be worth a shot. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I like this more than Dante's Inferno. What do you think about that?
Yeah. In a way, I think I did like it also more because I'm pretty sure that the score for the Dante's
Yeah.
Inferno was
That
not
was definitely not. Yeah.
right. So, like this had just a lot more, I think, sense to it. Plus, like you're getting dialogue now,
Right.
instead of like nothing.
Right, and that's interesting too. Dante's Inferno, at least again, the version we watched, I don't know if this was the case, had none of the title cards with dialogue. It was
Right.
entirely like Dante's entered hell.
Right. Yeah, and just describing the levels of hell, and then it's just picture. So, and not that like the pictures were bad. I thought the like set design for Dante's Inferno was way better than this.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Naturalistic
Right.
versus
Yeah, and
very imaginative.
I don't know why they didn't use like natural buildings for this movie. Like, I don't see the point.
style of the time.
Yeah,
Right. A lot of it's, I think, based in World War One and Germany's kind of
Oh, okay.
turn away from reality, if you will.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you see that stuff a lot, where you go a little more imaginative and stuff after big
Yeah.
trauma, which makes sense. But yeah, I like this one better. Not a whole lot more. I think that it does too much dialogue.
Yeah, I can see that. And especially like it's different when you're listening versus when you're reading,
Mm-hmm.
because reading like adds so much length to the film.
Right.
Same, I guess, with subtitles, although that's not as bad as like having like dialogue cards. So,
Right. Because the subtitles are synced up with
Right.
actual audio.
Exactly.
And yeah, I think this film is way much to the chagrin of me, because it's similar to everything we've ever made. It's much too ambitious.
Yeah, that is fair.
But yeah, I think it's a good history piece. It's not something that is great, but it's okay. It's
Yeah.
worth a watch, I think. Is it? Would you agree?
I think so. Yeah. Like if you're especially like a film student,
Mm.
I'd go ahead and watch it. If you don't really care about older films, don't waste your time.
Yeah,
I guess.
there's better silent films.
Yes. But yeah, I think it's worth it, especially from something that is now 100 years old.
Yeah,
So,
this year.
yep.
That's pretty crazy. Any final thoughts?
Not exactly. I thought, it was pretty alright. I think a remake would be cool. But still pretty influential at the end of the day.
Yeah. Next time we get to jump forward 1 year instead of 9.
Who knows?
So and we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 silent films left, and then we get sound. So
Nice.
just so you know,
There we go.
sound is a thing. It happened.